teaching you the art of industrial real estate. This is On Air with Team Jensen.
All right. Welcome, listeners. We have today M&M Quality Solutions with us for episode 26 of On Air, the art of industrial real estate. So today we have Jeff and Brian on with us, guys. Thanks for coming on, and I'll let the two of you kind of introduce yourselves a little bit. But if you want to go ahead in whichever order you prefer, and tell us a little bit about yourselves, your role with M&M, and kind of some background on M&M as well.
Sure, I'll go ahead and start. So, Brian McMaster, CEO of M&M Quality Solutions and founder, and I'll get into the story later, but originally founded with another partner, who's no longer in the business.
Okay.
So that's me.
Cool.
In a nutshell.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I'm Jeff Hinds. Been at M&M, just started recently, so like 97 days, I think it is.
Jury's still out.
So we're still debating on whether I belong here or not. But, yeah, been in food manufacturing, warehousing, supply chain for over 30 years.
Cool.
So I started when I was 5. So that's why I look pretty young.
Nice. And so M&M Quality Solutions, for anyone that's maybe not familiar, you guys are based here in Kansas City.
We are.
You have a couple other, got a couple locations here in town as well as other markets around the country.
Yeah.
But can you share a little bit about, what the origin story maybe kind of looks like, and what type of business you guys are in, and who you're looking to work with, and that kind of stuff.
Like, you want me to start one-room schoolhouse when I was born?
Wherever you want to get, But I do think, and I know I don't, I just like maybe kind of what got you interested in the business, and kind of how things came together originally.
Well, as far as the business is concerned, I always tell people it found me. Right. So I didn't, I don't have a note from the guidance counselor in high school that says, hey, you're going to get into logistics or warehousing in particular. But myself and my ex-business partner, I bought him out in 2010. We started the business in 2003. So this year, June, we'll be in business 22 years.
Cool.
So that's as you guys know, that's a feat in itself.
Yeah, no doubt.
Most businesses don't make it past their first year.
Right.
And, there were some questionable times along the way too. Which is a whole other bunch of stories. But M&M, we started out, our first client was Harley Davidson here in Kansas City. And we did anything from delivering quality inspected parts to the line to inspection on the line, just really a support type of supplier for the assembly line.
Okay.
And I actually started with my then business partner was my boss. So I moved here, which is a whole other story.
Yeah.
I moved here from South Central Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So, and I was actually affiliated with Harley a little bit since I was probably 13 years old, 11 years old. Huh. So, again, another story.
Yeah.
So if we have time, we'll hit on that. But we were doing inspection for Harley, and we were doing a lot of repping for suppliers that were out of state. So they couldn't, if they had problems with their parts or something along those lines, they didn't really have an affiliate here to help them. So that was basically what M&M started out as. So quality control, quality support, that type of stuff. And then, a couple years in, we were inspecting, I know the parts, I probably shouldn't say them, but we were inspecting some parts. And one of the people from Harley came to us and said, hey, can you store these for us too? And then meter them to the plant. So M&M was into warehousing, just like that.
Got it.
And I say just like that. It was like a 3-year process. Go find space. As you guys know in your world, big company. And, we want you to go find, 15,000 square feet. And then you get everything put together, and then, okay, well, let's hold off. Let's wait.
Right. Hurry up.
Hurry up and wait. We use that
drill.
statement a lot. Hurry up and wait. So we did one job for them. It just so happens, I can say this now, that one job paid for all the space.
Yeah.
So we were able to grow.
Yeah.
And truth be told, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know anything about warehousing. I'm an entrepreneur. So I was like, hey, if I can make money doing this, then that's what I'll do.
Yeah.
Right.
So really just went through the paces, ups and downs. And, Harley was 99% of my business for many years, probably half of the life of the company, which was double-edged sword, scary,
Sure. Yeah,
but
right.
also, good because they were supported. They were a good payer. good for resumes and that type of stuff.
Definitely, yeah.
But one day, woke up and I was like, man, I can't keep going this direction. I need to have some other customers. And, of course, all the business people and all the books tell you, you don't want to have anybody that's over 10% of your revenue and that type of stuff. And I'm like, wow, I'm 99%. I got to make a change here.
I want to diversify a little here. Yeah.
So first we pursued their suppliers, which was still bad, but not as bad. And we really just started to get ourselves into this niche business.
Yeah.
We were still doing quality control, which was good. So we were kind of more of a multifunctional warehouse then. We were storing the product as an afterthought.
Right.
But the sort and rework and quality control was always feast or famine.
Yeah.
So it was like one day I needed 15 people, the next day I didn't need anybody. So, really ups and downs and that type of stuff. So we had to kind of work our way through that.
Well, and that's hard to build a culture around too.
Absolutely.
Right? With employees.
Yeah, because they want to work.
Right.
So
right. And last thing you want to do is bring someone on to let them go.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Hey, I'm sorry, you're not going to work today. So constantly rotating people. It was like and finding labor that back then was just as hard as it is today.
Yeah.
Arguably harder.
Yeah.
So, we kept going and, the kind of the mindset was, hey, if I have a guy who I train to inspect parts, why not train him to drive a forklift? Why not train him to pick parts? Why not train him to do that kind of stuff? So then when we don't have the inspection process going on, then he's stocking shelves or doing something along those lines. So we really started to pursue ourselves as a warehouse.
Yeah.
But didn't really come into being a warehouse and a pick and pack operation until later down the road.
Okay.
So over that 22-year stint, probably, I would say 9 years ago, we really started to become a 3PL. And I, honestly, sorry for all my 3PL colleagues out there, but 3PL is an ugly word. People, as soon as you say 3PL, it's like, oh, I've had a horrible experience, and so on and so forth. And a lot of that goes along with the climate, the business climate, having people, because work from home wasn't an option during COVID, right? Because you can't run a forklift from home.
Yeah.
Arguably, we'll be able to 5 years from now.
True.
But right now we can't. So, really navigating through those waters. COVID was stressful for everybody, but just trying to kind of find our way as a pick and pack, really develop outside. And I'm happy to say today Harley's less than 3% of our business. We still do business with them in York, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
But they're way, way, way less than they used to be.
Yeah.
So, and our product mix is really nobody's more than 10% of our business.
Okay.
So,
cool.
We got to that place,
right?
But we started out in some rocky waters.
Is your branding with the M&M, is that the McMaster related?
It is. I'm one of the M's.
I thought so, maybe so.
The other M was McElroy.
Okay.
His name is Scott McElroy. He actually used to work for Harley, and he spun off and started his own repping business.
Okay.
I met him when I was I don't know how much content you want here, but I met him when I was delivering parts to the assembly line in York, Pennsylvania, and I didn't have a driver's license. I was 15 years old. I was working for my uncle's company.
Yeah.
He did engine guards, rear guards, all that kind of stuff. And I remember bumping the dock, 24-foot box trailer. That was the first time I met Scott. He's like, I've never seen you before. It's usually John, our other driver. I'm like, yeah, well, you guys needed your parts. We had to get them down here. And that was a crazy story, too, because we were, old-time business, right? Making ends meet. I learned from my uncle, who's my mentor still today. We had to start that truck with a screwdriver. Mm-hmm. So if it stopped, on the way, it was 22 miles one way to York. You got hot parts. We're going to shut the assembly line down. And there I am alongside the road starting a truck with a screwdriver. So
if it works, it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, we got the job done.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here today.
The car Stuart and I grew up driving, if you went over 70 on the highway, the speedometer would just start bouncing.
Yeah.
It was older than me, but
seeing some entrepreneur somewhere along the line looked at that and said, hey, I should put a limit on there and beep at you when you get to that. Now they have them in every car.
Yeah. Well, and part of what I think you're kind of talking about evolving your business and kind of looking to grow your accounts. And I have to assume that's something that Jeff is a big part of, and being new to the team. And it sounds like you've got some interesting background with the food and beverage and manufacturing, I think you said. And do you want to touch a little bit about that and kind of I mean, you probably don't want to share too much of the secret of the goals of what you guys are going after, but just kind of some background on your expertise there and how you guys can help kind of customers in that world too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're going to stay after this, right? You're going to
Do what?
You're going to stay after this, right?
Yeah, so, much like Brian, I've got an entrepreneurship background. So I've owned restaurants and gyms when I was really young in my life, and have always had that drive and that spirit.
Yeah.
And then I got into food manufacturing and stayed in it for, over 30 years. So I worked with very large organizations, Pillsbury, General Mills, the company that makes all the pies worldwide for McDonald's.
Cool. Okay.
I've done
Those are pretty
food
good
safety.
Those are pretty good pies.
They are good pies.
You're responsible for that red dye.
It's not good to work there because you end up having to do quality control, and you got to sample the pies. Okay. So
that's why you own the gym.
Absolutely. So the gym was the byproduct of, oh my gosh, this industry is getting me fat. And so I got into operations and really had some in-depth training on warehouse management, on supply chain, on procurement, on quality and food safety. Went through programs at General Mills. Actually, it was Pillsbury and Nassau started hazard analysis critical control points, which in food manufacturing is now required.
Okay.
And so knowing all the laws and the regulations to make sure what is produced is safe for you to eat and consume as a customer. And then went into food safety and quality assurance for large organizations, startup companies, got back into operations, ran a local company here for several years and turned that organization around. And then found myself traveling all over the world for these startups.
Cool.
And, I've got 4 kids at home and a wife, and travel and hotels isn't conducive to a long-term relationship.
Yeah.
So transparently prayed a lot for God to open up a door locally, and met Brian and truthfully hit it off foundationally from morals, ethics, values. And then, work ethic wise, we love exercising, taking care of our bodies, putting in our bodies the healthy stuff.
Right.
And so then with my background in food safety, quality control, operations, FDA, USDA, and kind of where we want to go as an organization, like that better for you lifestyle, there was a real synergy there with us. So
that's cool.
And now we get to enjoy the benefits of his hard work to actually have team members that are on there, working for years. You can build the culture, right? You can build that culture of that family atmosphere where I like to tell a lot of people, when you have a family, like I love my kids more than anybody, but I have the toughest dang conversations with my kids, right? Because I want them to learn and I want them to grow. Yeah. And so that's that atmosphere that, I want to have the tough conversation with you to help you to be the best version of yourself.
Right.
And so that's what we're doing now. And I mean, we're getting some amazing results, and we're seeing just pride and culture develop in all 3 facilities or 4 facilities, from East Coast to West Coast to the 2 here in Kansas City Metro. It's going to be a fun ride, with M&M Quality Solutions. So.
Well, and it starts, pretty clearly with the passion that's coming from the top, and it seems like you guys really have that, and will instill that in the organization and in the culture, and Brian has for years. But that's cool. That's very cool. It seems like a good marriage and the next step for you.
Absolutely, it's been fun. It's been short, but like I said, Brian and I talk about it all the time. It's like we've been connected for years, because we grew up, built the same, and we both had the same spirit and drive. So it's going to be a fun ride.
Now, Brian, has M&M been in the food industry at all?
No, we've done some pet food stuff,
right?
Which blew my mind that 5%. I think you have to have a FDA or some kind of certification because 5% of the population eats pet food.
Correct.
I did not know
Wait,
that.
what?
Yeah,
absolutely. It's highly regulated because what you see is a lot of kids will go and get a handful of dog food because they're trying to experiment.
Right.
I mean,
I got a 2-year-old at home.
Intentional or unintentional.
Right.
So dog food, pet food is highly regulated.
Oh, wow.
So you've got to make sure that, it's got a kill step in it,
right,
that someone can't get sick from eating it. So, there's a lot of regulations.
Well, to that point, I mean, we've got a client that is in town that's in that food processing world, and we've looked at a few properties, and to get the feedback immediately is the capital that's going to be required to get this building food grade, qualified or
Absolutely.
to check those boxes. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes quite a bit.
And that's one of the reasons why it's attractive to us too. It's a niche business, especially these days too. The old days, it was always the big food producers, Campbell's Soup, and they're still going to be around, but they're buying up all these little startup healthy brands, and we think the startup and healthy brands are where it's at, moving forward. And there's a lot of our competitors that have too much infrastructure to handle something like that. And there's people like us who need to kind of grow into that infrastructure. So we're really excited about how and that's really going to be a focus for us moving forward is health and wellness.
Well, yeah, sorry. Go.
No, you're okay. And to answer your question though, too, we've done a couple of food products in the past. We haven't done it right. It's been very low volume and kind of the startup thing, but we're really going after, more, protein powders and supplements and, that kind of stuff. Cause it's something we're both passionate about.
Yeah,
as well.
for sure. Well, I was going to say, without getting political, it does seem like with the current administration in place that there's going to be a focus and a hypersensitivity to, what those major corporations are able to push out to the American public moving forward.
Oh, yeah.
So there could be, we could be at the front end of a pretty significant shift in how that stuff's marketed and what, who carries what.
And then pendulum's been moving that way, I think, for the last probably 10, 15 years. I feel like most of my adult life has been kind of, you can see the public going that way generally. And I mean, we're all getting smarter and learning more about, our bodies and what's going to prolong your life and
where your food comes from.
Yeah, and where your food comes from and all that kind of stuff.
And let's face it, people are looking for answers.
Yeah.
Because the answer used to be take a pill. And now the pills are creating problems.
Right.
So it's like, okay, so what's the answer?
Well, it's just a Band-Aid. It doesn't heal the cut. And
in lots of cases, harm is very harmful.
Yeah.
So, but we, it's a great opportunity. And through my relationships over the years with Harley and a lot of the businesses that we've done work with, and now Jeff too, we have these relationships with some influencers and some, we have some really key relationships that are helping us kind of get in the back door and really be able to navigate our way through this. So, we have a bright future and we're excited about it.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
No, that's one of the things. I was excited to have you guys on to talk more about it. And, speaking of relationships, Martin City Brewing is one of our sponsors.
It looks tasty.
And while beer isn't necessarily the health and wellness item, I am an avid yoga guy. And I know when we were talking, prior to this, you were talking about health and wellness. And so I figured the Yoga Pants beer might be a fun one to bring on for this episode. It's gluten-free. And I actually don't think I've tried it yet. And I think, no pressure on having a beer, but Stuart and I will probably... You
guys are welcome to refrain. I will...
Out of...
I'm obligated to drink one,
Out of necessity to Martin City as our sponsor, we got to support them.
But we've had a Crack It Open segment.
Yeah.
Here.
I've got a question for Crack It Open. If you...
Go ahead, I got one too.
Crack it open. I'm not trying to get you in trouble with one of your original customers, but are you a Harley owner yourself?
I'm not today.
Okay.
But I was before.
Okay.
And I will tell you, it has nothing to do with the quality of the bike or any of that. They make a nice product.
Yeah.
I agree.
But what it has to do with is the attention of other drivers.
Yeah.
That's what it has to do with.
Yeah.
And being on two wheels, it's such a invigorating experience.
I bet.
I mean, we went to the 95th anniversary for Harley. And I rode my 95th anniversary Fat Boy from Pennsylvania to Milwaukee.
Oh, wow.
And had a girlfriend at the time, and she was in tears by the time we got to Chicago because her butt hurt so bad. It rained. There was potholes that felt like we went down in and came back up out.
Geez.
That kind of stuff. But it's a fantastic bike, and it's a great company. But yeah, just distracted drivers. Even bicycling. I was a bicyclist for a while too. And I sold my bikes because
you can do everything right, and then someone rides the stop sign.
Exactly.
I'm with you. I had a Harley for years.
Okay.
And, in fact, my mom has owned Harleys her entire life and grew up around Harleys. So
Yeah.
I had to get one naturally,
Right.
But there's nothing like them. But you're right. When after I got married, it was you got to reassess what's
Right.
important, and it's one mistake from another driver. As
Right.
safe as you are, it's one accident.
Well,
Unfortunately,
and then when you've got family counting on you, and
that's right.
you got some overhead to worry about. Yeah.
Fun is then becomes a different
Yeah.
Yeah.
category when you're talking about that and what's
Yeah.
at stake. So
Well, they're legendary. They're a legendary bike.
awesome.
They really are. I've
Yeah.
got a few of my buddies that have a couple of them and love riding them.
Yeah.
But I've never, we grew up in the area and suburbanville, and we never, our dad didn't ride them or anything like that, and we don't have any history with them. But
I
I think they would be
hurt
fun.
myself growing up.
Yeah,
so
that's
it was
probably
probably
true.
good that I didn't have one. I was always pushing the
Yeah.
limits.
Yeah.
Well, I'm also curious. I think it's cool that we've got two guys here that have planted their flags in Kansas City that aren't originally from here, and I think that's neat.
Yeah.
And you've had your career here, and I'm curious over your years. It sounds like Brian, you've been in Kansas City maybe longer than Jeff has, but I think you said you've been here 10, 12 years now, right?
Yep.
I guess I'm curious, what about Kansas City after you got, really on your feet with M&M, and maybe I missed the part of the story where you guys did start to locate here, or what brought you to Kansas City initially, but what is it about Kansas City that brought you here and that's kept you here?
So Harley was the reason I came.
I was gonna say they're
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
that
their
makes
facility
sense.
up north.
Yeah, but what kept me here? When I remember moving here, I think Berry Road was only 2 lanes
Okay.
when I first got here in 2003, and I just liked the culture. People in the Midwest, coming from the East Coast. In the East Coast, people can be pretty harsh.
Yeah.
Even as you get closer to New Jersey, New York. But people were very nice. It was the weather is about the same as it was in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
We'd get snow from time to time. We get cold, but we'd
Yeah.
also
Right.
get really hot. In
You
the
get 4
summertime.
seasons
Yeah,
out there.
exactly.
Yeah, right.
So I probably should say this. I went to a Chiefs game. I went to Arrowhead, and I was not a pro football fan.
Okay.
I thought it was fake and rigged, and of course, a lot of people think that now too.
Yeah,
But
right.
I went to Arrowhead. I went to the Royals game. It was just nice to be because I was in between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia,
Okay.
and
Okay.
Baltimore.
Right. Yeah.
And everybody was a Phillies fan. Everybody was a Ravens fan, or Penn State or whatever. Not me. I've always been the kind of guy that figure out where everybody else is going and go the other direction because your chances are better, right? So I just really liked it felt like home.
Yeah.
And
that's cool.
And then just being affiliated with a company like Harley, and being able to use your term, plant the flag here and say, hey, this is great. And honestly, I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I knew I wanted to have a business, and I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I was an entrepreneur, but I didn't know. I was just kind of going. I was letting God lead me, and
It's like, hey, this is working. Let's keep it going.
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. Well, we're biased, but we think it's pretty great here too. We've
Yeah.
born and raised, and
Yeah.
sometimes I do also appreciate the niceties that you get, especially during some of the cold calling efforts that we've been doing.
Sure.
Man, people are friendly and will talk to you.
Yeah.
We've had a few, that don't like it, but
honestly, too, the other thing, being in logistics, where else would you want to be?
that's
Right.
true.
We're in the center of the country.
Oh, yeah.
We're literally
Yeah.
in the center of the country. So, and we're both men of faith, but we're like things just happen for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I'm in logistics. I'm in the center of the country.
Right.
Now we're on both coasts. So things are happening. They're very positive, and this is a great place to be for that hub.
Yeah.
We can be 2 days anywhere in the U.S., lower 48.
Yeah, that's awesome.
good stuff.
Well, and Kansas City has been on quite a ride over the last 10, 15 years, and you guys have been here for it. And that's cool. And
Yeah.
Especially the last 5.
yeah, no doubt about that. No doubt about that.
It's been awesome.
And more to come with the World Cup and
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
Kansas
absolutely.
City's still trending in the right direction. We feel like.
Yeah.
And then you guys you got here. Did you start your family in Kansas City, or did you have did you move kids up here?
Yeah, good question. We actually started our family in Tulsa,
Okay.
which is where all the pies worldwide
Yeah.
are made from
Yeah.
McDonald's.
Okay.
So we met at work, and hit it off really overnight, and it was like a love at first sight story.
Yeah, that's cool.
And got married a year after going on our first date, and
That's awesome.
3 years later we had 4 kids. So God definitely had the plans for for us. But yeah, then we had an opportunity to come up to Kansas City. And, growing up in Southwest Missouri, I mean, I knew the culture up here.
Yeah.
We'd come up here as a family for vacations, but you get that, you can have the big city feel, but you can just move out a little bit out of the city, you've got all different kinds of communities and just really fell in love with it, where education was, very important for us.
Yep.
To make sure we had the right educational system for our kids and raising a family. And truly, there's no better place to raise a kid. I tell people all the time, I feel like we live in a bubble.
Yeah.
It's so good. And
I know.
you can go out of your bubble and you can see how other people live,
Right.
and relate to everyone around the world. But, here you can drive down the road and wave at somebody and they wave back.
Right.
You go to other places and you wave at somebody and you may get waved back, you may get a dirty look, you may get flipped off, It's like, so I love raising a family here in the area. And what I've found interestingly enough is that this Midwest culture, for whatever reason, I find them in our warehouses in York, Pennsylvania, and in Salt Lake City. And I don't know whether God just blessed us with finding the right people, but we actually have great people that have smiles on their faces and that are happy. And so, part of our role that we always discuss is changing lives is, we don't have a very long time on this earth, and how many lives can we change? And I feel like God put us in the supply chain world where we're warehousing and supply chain distribution. We get to touch a lot of faces and touch a lot of people, and how can we change their lives for the better?
Right. No, absolutely. Actively living kind of in that path, and I that's something I feel like, especially in this last year, I've been trying to do more of, because it's easy to get caught up in the day to day, but it's important, I think, to kind of come back and center yourself and realize that, to your point, we're not around for a long time, and I think I'm sure you guys like us feel similar. We've been blessed with
Amen.
Where we're at today, and the help and mentorship we've seen along the way, and all we can ask is the ability to reciprocate, really.
That's right.
And I think that's part of coming back to Kansas City. I think there's a lot of that mentality in Kansas City, which is very cool.
Well, and there's a willingness, and this is something we've touched on with some other guests that have, locally owned and operated type businesses, but there's to the community point, I mean, there's a support between people acknowledge, oh, you're like me, you're a small local business, and there's that community that people are willing to, just you feel like people rally around each other a little bit more here than maybe they do elsewhere.
Yeah,
that's what it feels like. But so how many other markets are you guys in? You said Salt Lake to Pennsylvania.
Right.
What's kind of some of the stuff in between?
So really just Kansas City right now.
Okay.
So Kansas City, and we have a plant in Fairfax as well.
Okay, got it.
So we have 2 here. We have 1 in Salt Lake City, and we have 1 in York, Pennsylvania.
And York, is that? I assume that's primarily Harley Davidson stuff, or have you guys been able to grow that?
We've been able to grow.
Okay.
But it started out primarily.
That's what I figured. Yeah.
So every single wheel that goes on a Harley goes through our facility.
Very cool.
So
okay.
Now you mentioned how your business with Harley is less of your total business, but I'm sure a lot of that was strategic, but is there a competitor that is coming in and taking some, or that's competed on market share with you there? Is Harley doing things differently to where, or have you guys just taken on other business avenues and other clients to where you've taken on enough business that they're a smaller share of that now?
Yeah, we've grown exponentially,
Sure.
as Harley has either grown a little bit or stayed, the same percentage. We've grown outside of that.
Okay, got it.
So we're doing quite a few different type of things.
So it's really just M&M growth more that's driving that
Yes.
than it is a change of how Harley was doing things or a competitor coming in.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And we just didn't, quite frankly, we just don't like being relying on a huge company.
Definitely.
Right.
Because they make changes slowly, but when they make them, it can be very detrimental to your business.
Right.
Yeah, well,
So-
especially with current climate that we've got with the trade wars and everything going on there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The uncertainty. So
Yeah.
that's why you differentiate is to mitigate some of that uncertainty.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I know we've touched on that, that a little bit prior to our episode, but has the tariff war and all that, how has that impacted your guys' business? And I mean, a lot of times I think it can be an opportunity to help customers out. And have you seen some of that, or are some of your customers maybe fortunate and haven't been as impacted by it as you might think?
Yeah, we've seen it. It's been a little ripple for us, but this latest 90-day thing, everybody's kind of pulling the trigger and trying to get as much in here as they can, so that
Right.
when the decision changes in 90 days, they're prepared.
Yeah.
But and that's another thing, positioning ourselves with customers who are not affected by that type of stuff.
Right.
Because a lot of people, we do some sourcing as well, and that's just through contacts that I've met over the years. And I talked to a guy a couple of months ago, and he said he takes 10 calls a day, and 9 of them are people wanting to get out of China.
Yeah.
So, and if they move to India, which is likely, the ports on the East Coast are going to get very, very busy.
Yeah.
And I just saw this morning, I saw an article that the port of LA is like 33% down as far as throughput. I mean, so we're not feeling it so much, but what we are seeing is a lot of domestic quotes, a lot of opportunity for domestic people.
Yeah.
So.
No,
I guess that was kind of the goal with it, right?
Yeah.
I do think
Yeah.
I do think it was a big part of it, and that because I was in Vegas last week for the SIOR fall or spring conference, which is Society of Industrial and Office Realtors, and it's a global network of brokers like myself throughout the country and really throughout the globe, and that was one of the big. It's really been a common theme the last couple of conferences is reshoring of manufacturing, but the impact is really it's going to be great, and we're just on the cusp of it. I think, and that's what the talk is, and I really think I think there's it's going to be a lot domestic, but even I think we're seeing a lot more happen and a lot more industry coming to Mexico as well, which is I'm sure you guys have seen some of that, and I think it's really going to change the dynamics, and I think overall it's for the better. And I think there was obviously historically there was a big chase of globalization and minimize your costs and maximize your return. And I think I think with technology and things, I think there's ways to still do that, and rather plant those seeds closer to home now than across the globe in a climate or political climate that we have no control over.
That's true.
So, and kind of like the 10% rule, I mean, I should look it up. I'm sure there's tons of statistics on it, but my guess is my guess is over 10% of what's manufactured and imported in the United States is coming from China. And it's significantly higher, probably closer to like 75% or something. So, to kind of that same rule of thumb, I think it's probably a good thing evolving long term to get out from underneath that heavy weight.
Yeah, definitely. And it kind of goes back to kind of our mission, with changing people's lives. I know myself, I look at my garage and my closets and all stuff. It's like we have so much stuff.
Yeah.
And it's stuff that came from China. It's stuff that came from overseas, and it's nothing that we need. Yeah. So, maybe if we just build more of what we need here and keep the junk outside of, our geographic area,
right?
Maybe that's a way to get back to, hey, we don't need all this stuff,
right?
So
well, we're definitely an instant gratification society.
Absolutely. Amazon turned us into that. Yeah,
it's more than we already
to say the least.
Right.
How quickly can you get this to my doorstep?
I remember the first time I ordered same day delivery and it didn't show up, and I was upset.
right.
I'm like, and I had to stop and pause and be like, wow, you're really upset. Like
This in
like
here
10
in
years
5
ago,
minutes.
this would have took you 2 weeks.
Right.
So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Well, like with all that stuff, just another random example, but I was telling you guys I was playing in the Olathe EDC or Olathe Chamber golf scramble this past Monday, and I was laughing with the guy I was with. It's like you play in these scrambles and every little and I appreciate it because I get it. It's part of branding and visibility, but you get all these takeaways like at every hole. That's just, and all of a sudden you look in your golf bag and you're like, I have like 12 of these. I don't need a million koozies. I don't need, it's cool you printed your brand on this, but it's going to end up collecting dust in my house until I ultimately hopefully do a deep clean and get rid of it. And it's going to be in a landfill. And so
I just did that in Austin. I went to the Health Optimization Summit, which is, because of the health and wellness thing, we're focused on going to some of these trade shows. But, because you had a VIP ticket, you get a swag bag. Right? Swag bag weighed like 50 pounds.
Right.
And I'm thinking, there's got to be some good stuff in here. And it's not.
It's a bunch of
crap. It's supplements you're never going to take, or you already take, or, something along that. But the same thing, swag and coupon cards and, that kind of stuff. So, it's just too much stuff. Things need to be simplified.
Did you guys see an influx of warehousing activity? Did you go into any kind of growth mode from the surge of e-commerce or anything during that COVID time?
Yeah. Well, of course it was. The best thing that could have happened was we were, how did they say, we were...
you were an essential business.
An essential business, yes, which was fantastic. Yeah. We found out later you could fill out an application and become an essential business.
I was going to say, I learned it wasn't too hard to designate yourself as that.
Exactly. So that's what we get for watching the news, right? So, but we made it through COVID. The toughest part, I just had this conversation with somebody the other day, the toughest part was navigating through all the loan stuff and those kind of things, and then also helping our people through it. Yeah, explaining to you, you're not going to die. We're taking temperatures at the door, and we're, doing all this kind of stuff. I swear we're going to look back and read those history books someday. And
I know.
Like,
it's going to be comical. People
thinking?
Yeah.
So,
but we didn't know.
It was a stressful time.
We didn't know how to navigate
it. So much fear was surrounding
changing all the time. So I would imagine that's probably the sentiment of a lot of companies. That was our biggest challenge was managing our employees and our expectations and
make sure everyone's comfortable. Because there was polar opposite comfort levels with it.
True.
There was
we were. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
We were warehousing for a company that did high-end sewing machines.
Okay.
And they sold to Walmart and $200, $300, $400 sewing machines. But they also made sewing machines that were industrial that were like $10,000, $11,000. So, or for people that do quilts and crafts and all that kind of stuff. Overnight, 4,000 sewing machines ship out because they're sewing masks and they're sewing gowns. And of course, entrepreneur, right? We contacted the state and said, hey, we got all these sewing machines. If you send us a print or whatever, we'll start doing this for you kind of thing. Yeah. And it turned out to kind of meander away after that. But, it was just crazy what would ship. But one of the things that did happen that was fantastic out of that whole thing was Amazon and the Targets and the Walmarts and all those people, they decided they were only going to ship essential goods. So we're only going to ship medications. We're only going to ship masks. So what about the backpack guys that we're warehousing for?
Yeah.
Well, you're not shipping my stuff. So all of a sudden now we have people who will ship with Amazon and sell on Amazon, but they'll also keep stock in our warehouse as well, so that they have a backup plan in case this happens again.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it almost opened up like a secondary line of warehousers for you.
Yep.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah. So it's fantastic. It affected us in a lot of positive ways. But again, being the visionaries that we are as far as taking care of people, it's like, how do we take care of our people? How do we educate our people? How do we get them to understand that, don't be afraid, but just be informed, kind of thing.
Right.
So,
yeah, it was an interesting time to say the least.
Which I'm glad it's kind of when we first got started with the podcast, that was a pretty popular question, and we're enough down the road. It's like it feels like it was a while ago now. And I do think it's amazing to think how much more or how much different I think the world would handle that situation if or when something similar happens again. Because we're more familiar with it, but B, not to get goofy about AI, but I think we are all much more informed and I think there's just there's much more knowledge at our fingertips now today, and I think ability to maybe even kind of mend or bend to things.
Right.
And so I think it would be interesting to see. But I not that I want to find out.
Yeah,
but-
hopefully
Yeah, let's not do that just yet. Let's give that a couple of years.
Yeah.
give us another 100 years for the next one.
But I do, and funny enough, I think that restraint on the supply chain and impact on transportation and logistics and all that, I think really helped almost prepare a lot of folks in our industry and in our space with what's been going on the last 4 or 5 months with the tariffs. I think folks are more prepared and nimble when it comes to uncertainty.
Well, yeah, it comes to like that like that's ever going to happen.
Right.
Like, that is no,
that's no longer
You
in
got to
the-
take basically anything serious.
When you kind of got to learn to trust your gut and
Right.
rely on that a little bit more than what's scaring you in the morning or what. And so I think it's a different climate now for sure. But I think we're all smarter from it and better off from it.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah. But I appreciate you guys coming on, and I've had a lot of fun getting to talk with you guys. Are there any questions, or we do like also kind of asking what your goals and plans for the next 3, 5, 10 years, and if you want to talk a little bit about what types of folks you're looking to connect with, or what you hope M&M looks like in 5 years. Some of that is kind of fun as a takeaway, and also maybe if you want to touch on how customers can find you if they are in need of some help,
Or if you're actively recruiting or anything like that.
Yeah, any roles you're trying to fill with the team. And
Do you want to take that one, or do you want me to? I just want to see if you've been paying attention for the last.
See, 97 days worth of data. No, I think, I think we've already expressed, who our ideal clients are. We want to really go after the health and welfare business.
Okay.
So supplements, proteins, vitamins, minerals, anything that can truly help people become the best version of themselves.
Right.
I think that's going to be a transition, right? We've got some great clients now in our warehouses, but it's a little bit different look now than I think it will be in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Business wise, we're ready to grow. We're optimizing our spaces. We're providing really great value coming down the pipeline for warehouse spacing.
Yeah.
We just had a great meeting as a team together and really just sit down and thought about where do we want to go and how do we get there. And that's providing the best service, the best quality, and the best price.
Right.
And so that's what we're going to go after. So I think here over the next 1.5 to 2 years, we're really going to impact and fill up every one of our warehouses. But on a different level, I think our goal, again, is to change lives and build relationships. And so our goal is to do that both internally and externally from the organization. So that is with our clients. That is at trade shows with potential new clients, or even if they're not a potential new client, develop those relationships to last a lifetime.
Yeah.
And then to help change as many lives financially, spiritually, holistically, internally for our team members.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I see us going. And what I love about it is, again, foundationally, Brian and I are on the same page about how we want to treat our team members. In our minds, it doesn't matter what your title is. You're still a human being.
Yep.
And we're going to treat you that way. I don't care whether you're the janitor or the CEO. I'm not going to treat anyone any different, because we're all human beings. We're all going to add value in our own ways. So
The team aspect over the years, we've had some M&M's had so many ups and downs, and we've been at the lowest of lows and we've been at the highest of highs. But when we talk about people and relationships, it really has become a purpose. And I don't know, for the first 20 years or even 18, 20 years that we had a purpose. We were warehousing, and
Right.
we would take just about anything, kind of go down that road. And I'm not saying we wouldn't turn away solar panels or something along those lines, but largely we want to stay focused in this stuff that we believe in.
Yeah.
And we're in a growth mode. we're looking for opportunities. We found a small mom and pop that was for sale in Savannah. We would entertain doing some of that stuff. So, really we're looking for people who share our values and companies that share our values and, companies that may want to partner with us. We're talking about some freight solutions and, those types of things so that we can add more capability to our clients. But we don't want to be a 3PL. We want to be more of an integrator.
Yeah.
Somebody that does more than just pick it, pack it, ship it. You want to be able to offer more.
Right.
So.
Well, and expanding on that, I think, it is truly getting us out into this world to let people know that we're more than just a warehouse and supply chain. I mean, things that we can do. Brian mentioned earlier, quality control. We can do quality inspections, returns. We can work on those. We can do kitting. We can build things for people. And something fairly new within the last, year, we can build displays now. So we've got an arm within our organization that can build these displays, whether that's corrugate or metal or acrylic.
Right. Cool.
We can build them, we can fill them, and we can wrap them and ship them. So, we've truly added a lot of value that a lot of other warehouse distribution model partners throughout the world they don't have, and they can't do that, and we can. So
we're also focused in on some technology plays as well. We can't say anything about it right now, but kind of the warehouse of the future type of thing. I know there's a lot of people working on it, and there's a lot of big companies that have a lot of money to spend, but I think we have some pretty exciting plans, moving forward that I think will really help our customers. And we're not trying to be all things to all people, like the freight side of things. We're not going to take care of freight. We're going to partner with somebody who does freight.
Right.
And join ourselves at the hip and go forward from there. So, but the display marketing was really a way to help out our current clients.
Yeah.
And we literally will build a display and then get product like a Nintendo or something along those lines, stick it in and then send it to wherever it's going to. So it's so it's still logistics. It's still pick, pack, and ship.
Right.
It's just adding that.
You're adding
display
additional
piece to it.
value. Yeah.
So we're not buying it from somebody. We're actually handling it ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I mean it's honestly not all that different from just kind of the motto that we'd had. We want to be, since I started, we want to be front of mind, and we want to be less transactional with folks.
Yes.
We want to, a lot of times brokers are kept at arm's length and don't carry the greatest connotation. Similarly, like how you described the 3PLs, it's like folks don't understand that we're trying to build a relationship with you, and it's okay if that takes 24 months, 36 months, and then let's continue that over both of our careers type thing. That's the ideal goal. And then, the only thing better than doing something that you enjoy doing is getting to serve people that you also enjoy working with.
Yeah.
And so, everyone's had a client that it's like, oh God, I don't want to go talk to them again. But it's like, it only makes your day-to-day more enjoyable, and it all rolls downhill to the culture and everything. If you actually enjoy the people you're doing business with, working with.
That's right.
I mean, that's what it all centers around.
That's all the difference.
Well, it always comes back to working with people. Work with people they like and want to work with, and that's been one of the luxuries we've had. Is we've had the opportunity to work with a lot of like-minded folks that are fun to work with and treat us like a partner. And it's a lot easier to focus on how we can help versus, well, how am I going to make money on this when you have a strong relationship with that person and they see you as a partner. So. That's our end goal. It sounds like that's your guys' end goal.
Yeah.
And really appreciate you guys coming on again, and excited to see you guys grow. And
appreciate that.
I think after everything we've been talking about and some of the things I see on the horizon for you guys, I do think it's going to be cool to see how you guys can kind of handle this dynamic time in the industry. So. Thanks again. And before, one last plug. You said it's Spirit, Hustle, and Health.
Yeah.
So,
Spirit, Health, and Hustle.
Or Spirit, Health, and Hustle. Okay.
Yep.
So you've got your own podcast. So
yeah, sure do.
We might have to tag that when we put this out. And
by that time it'll be published. There's only 10 episodes right now. So
do you guys does M&M have a website?
We do. www.mmqualitysolutions.com.
mmqualitysolutions.com.
Yep.
All right.
Cool.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, thank you, listeners. That is a wrap, and that was episode 26. Thanks again, guys.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks.
teaching you the art of industrial real estate. This is On Air with Team Jensen.